Look around you. The Wi-Fi connecting your devices, the remote control on your table, the alternating current powering the very lights in your room. All of these invisible forces that dictate our daily lives trace back to the mind of a single man. Yet, if you open a standard science textbook, his name barely registers. We are taught to revere his contemporaries, men who received immense wealth and glory, taking up entire chapters of our history. Meanwhile, the architect of our modern era met a completely different fate. After a lifetime of brilliant engineering, he died entirely destitute, living alone in a modest room at the New Yorker hotel, unable to pay his living expenses for nearly a decade. The man who built the 20th century didn't simply fade into obscurity by accident. His disappearance from our collective memory was engineered. He was systematically eliminated by a financial and political apparatus deeply threatened by his ideology. The timeline of his final days reveals a disturbing sequence of events. On January 7, 1943, Nikola Tesla died in room 3327. He had spent his final 48 hours strictly isolated behind a do not disturb sign, entirely alone. Before the public even knew he was gone, a highly coordinated raid on his room began. Agents from the FBI moved in, working alongside the Office of Alien Property Custodian, a specific government agency typically reserved for neutralizing threats from foreign nationals. They stripped the room bare, hauling away 80 trunks filled with a lifetime of technical research, patents, and personal documents before the family could even be notified. The physical seizure of his life's work marked the final stage of a deliberate process to neutralize his influence, an economic, intellectual, and finally, a historical assassination. The first strike against him began decades earlier, during the infamous War of Currents. To understand the stakes, look at this note. This shows the severe limitation of Thomas Edison's direct current, or DC system. Because DC electricity could only travel about 2 to 3 kilometers, cities required expensive, high-density power stations on almost every corner just to keep the lights on. Tesla engineered a solution: alternating current. By utilizing AC, electricity could suddenly travel. As the map scales outward, you can see AC power lines easily distributing energy across hundreds of kilometers, completely overwhelming the small, isolated DC nodes. He proved this dominance publicly by flawlessly lighting up the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. That public triumph secured him an incredibly lucrative royalty contract with industrialist George Westinghouse. Based on the sheer volume of AC electricity being adopted nationwide, this single agreement positioned Tesla to become the world's first billionaire. But Tesla possessed what psychologists call a messianic complex. He firmly believed his purpose was to serve humanity, not to accumulate wealth. When Westinghouse's company faced severe financial trouble and bankruptcy due to intense corporate rivalries, Tesla made a fateful choice. He literally tore up his own royalty contract to save the company and ensure his AC system would continue reaching the public. By prioritizing the widespread distribution of his technology over his own bank account, he discarded his financial armor. He left himself entirely defenseless against the aggressive corporate monopolies that were already plotting to crush him. This vulnerability was exploited during his ultimate dream project, the Wardenclyffe Tower. Tesla designed this massive structure to do something truly radical: distribute free, wireless electricity to the entire globe. To build it, he needed capital. He secured funding from one of the era's most powerful financiers, J.P. Morgan. Morgan invested under the false assumption that the tower was simply a tool for wireless communication, a way to send messages faster and make a profit. Eventually, Tesla revealed the true scope of the project, explaining that the energy would be freely available to anyone. Morgan immediately asked a very practical, very ruthless question. If anyone can draw on the power, where do we put the meter? Realizing free energy couldn't be monetized, Morgan instantly cut the funding and systematically blacklisted Tesla across the entire financial sector. J.P. Morgan's withdrawal left Tesla without the capital required for high-level research. In a financial system where innovation requires a return on investment, a technology designed to be free is effectively a non-starter. Stripped of his capital, Tesla spent his final years bouncing between hotels. At one point, to cover unpaid rent, he handed a hotel owner a mysterious wooden box. He claimed it contained a prototype for a weapon of mass destruction, a particle beam, warning the owner never to open it. It was a bluff, containing only old electrical components, simply to survive. But the United States government wasn't treating his claims as a bluff. As World War II raged, they grew deeply concerned that Tesla's actual, legitimate blueprints for advanced weaponry might fall into the hands of his nephew, who had strong communist ties. Which brings us back to the raid on room 3327. Of the 80 trunks of research materials the agent seized, the government only returned 60 of them to his family in 1952. 20 trunks were permanently classified, missing to this day. The principles Tesla described in his final research surfaced decades later in highly classified defense initiatives, including Ronald Reagan's Strategic Defense Initiative. This was his intellectual assassination. The state calculated exactly how to extract and monopolize his most advanced ideas for national security, all while ensuring the general public viewed him as a discredited, aging madman. With his wealth drained and his research locked in intelligence vaults, the final step was to erase him from the history books. We see immense textbook glory and even Nobel Prizes awarded to businessmen like Guglielmo Marconi, men who simply monetized foundational radio patents that Tesla had already invented. History, it turns out, is written by the victors of the economic order. Society elevates the inventors who reinforce and enrich the existing financial system. Conversely, it systematically erases the visionaries whose ideas threaten to disrupt it. Today, we celebrate minor consumer tech upgrades, a slightly better camera, a faster processor, as the pinnacle of achievement. We accept commercial iteration as a replacement for the world-altering breakthroughs Tesla once envisioned. While his public legacy was erased, his most disruptive ideas remained property of the state. We continue to pay for every watt of energy in the world Morgan built, while the blueprints for a wireless future remain under lock and key.